Eventually he discovered that some upon this prime could sense his probing of their realm, and some took an inquisitive look to his threads. He soon found himself staring back at the representatives of this prime, and communication began with them. They wished to know what he was, for they could sense he held demonic energies, but also sensed that he had what they referred to as the touch of the divine about him. They reasoned that perhaps he was a fallen god that had been trapped in the wars of another prime, whilst combating the demonic forces of the source, and that he needed their aid to escape his prison. He could not believe his fortune, to find creatures so easily swayed, so willing to help him escape this prison of his own creation. So he accepted and worked with them, and within the space of a century or so, they erected a huge temple with which to draw energies from the demonic plane he was trapped in, and allow them to attune a portion of their own prime to it, thereby allowing him to step through and take his rightful place back upon a prime, where he could then contact the divine ones and return to them once more. Of course, he was not going to tell them that was what he wanted, but not for the reasons they held. They were unwittingly sending him home to the host, back to Chrylsis, and this pleased him. Before he entered their prime, however, he allowed his magics to permeate their realm, so he could detect others touching their prime, only to discover that they had a few temples to gods that no longer seemed to be present upon their realm. Upon completion of the gateway, he stepped through, and they looked on in awe at his sheer power, his divine form. To them, he was truly a lost god. They asked questions of his origins, where he had hailed from, who he was, and it was then he realized he did not know. He knew of his origins, of course, and how he came to be, but the simple question threw him into a stunned silence. He did not have a name, an identity to others. The large-scaled creature explained to him over many days that he must have had a name. How else could he have gleaned his power from the connection between his followers and his places of worship, and ultimately communication from above with the others of divine form? He slowly understood that those upon the primes, those who were not as he, immortal, had short lives, and seemed to, for some reason, tie their existence to various hosts. So this was where they got their power from the very life upon the primes themselves. He had yet another goal, a way to weaken his foes, to take something from them. But yet he wondered, could he be worshipped as they, and in turn gain what they themselves had? Could he gain power from a following, from the fealty of lesser creatures? What did they call it? Ah yes, a priesthood. The Scaled One introduced him to others of their kind, also scaled, and immense in stature, and they announced they had all paid fealty at one time to a divine host, but the divinity of the realm vanished as the sky shook and the stars went out, leaving them with very few lights in their skies at this time. Some cataclysm had taken place, and the two divine hosts that they had sworn their faith to had gone, but they kept their spirits high, and their powers honed, such as they were now without the touch of the divine gifts, but they were mere shadows of their former glory. They took him to one of their grand old temples, and this is where he saw a familiar sight. A host he knew all too well, for it was among the ones he had taken within him in his attack upon them. He now knew the devastation his actions had caused, and for a moment he realized the impact of his actions, as fast and as simple as they were, upon the primes that had relied upon those hosts for guidance, for power, and in some cases, he wagered, for their very existence. They tried to divine his name, as he was clearly in need of this knowledge, but they could not find one, as the divination showed his own divinity was unique, untouched by the ceremonies and initiations they had learnt about in their time upon the prime, and came to reason that he had for some reason been cast out from the divine before this could be done. before he became a true member of their kind, and they asked if he had any memory of this. He merely answered that he knew not who he was, nor why he was. He kept them at bay while his magic seeped into the realm slowly, but he discovered that demonic energies from the portal acted so very slowly here, as this prime somehow seemed to push back, almost resisting being permeated. It would be a long time if he let things take their natural course, but he could wait, for now at least. He spent many years with them, learning in the conventional manner, talking, interacting, and realizing that these creatures knew far more than he could ever glean merely by taking their bodies. He had to gain this information firsthand, and with this simple realization, he now knew how he must move forward. He asked if it was possible for this initiation ceremony to be completed, so he could take his place with the host, or as they put it, the divine. They said they knew of ways and hidden places around existence, but that although they themselves were extremely well versed with many differing magics and divine secrets, they could not themselves perform such a task. However, some of their kinds had left to traverse the plains, and they knew some who might hold such knowledge, and so they reached out and contacted their kin upon these places and other primes. He took advantage of these links they established to put forth the seeds of his own magic, planting a thread or two upon each of these places so he could sense their locations in future times, so as not to alert the denizens directly of his presence. This went on for many years, until finally replies had been given from most of the scattered brethren, and it seemed that they must contact the Old Ones, known to their kind as the First.